Hey everyone, Mans here, hope you're doing well. Today I'm gonna chat a little bit about politics, that detestable artificial system, at least as I see it. I'm gonna share my vision on it a bit more. You make up what you think of it. I think, well, you know what, I'm just gonna lay it out. So, the main tenets on the left, as that's called. There were two wings of the same beast, by the way. Main tenets on the left are freedom, that is freedom of expression, freedom of movement, it's nourishment, and it's I think those are three good tenets to bring up for left to paint the picture. And on the right, for example, you have structure, you have providing through industry, economy, structure is law and all of that, and bloodlines, heritage. Heritage is also very important for the right. And from both sides then you can tell is that the left is very feminine and the right wing is very masculine. Imagine in a household where these tenets on both sides are to be combined and work together. 100% freedom and the house is gonna be burned up before the day is over. 100% structure, and the house is gonna stay around, but it's gonna be cold, and it's gonna be cold on the inside. It's gonna be an unpleasant house. So it's like finding that 50-50 balance, which is the task between husband and wife, almost, you could say. Then again, masculine and feminine is more than the actual physical male or female. It's about energies, about mindset, that sort of thing. It's not about how much estrogen or testosterone you have in your body necessarily. That is an indicator that might lead to one or the other, but overall, right? Balance in that sense. A coming together or molding off. And in that sense, becoming one. Politics, however, is where these two are pulled out of the house. They're like, let's say, a man and a husband who are pulled apart. They're supposed to fight each other, and everyone in the rest of the population is living the broken marriage's consequences. But then, without that fight, there's a lot of jobs that would not be around, perhaps. Or maybe I'm wrong. No. Maybe a lot of these fights are also not so much the natural consequence of anything, and are there just like the system itself, just artificially put in place to keep it all going. Kick the can a bit further down, so certain types who take profit out of this system can keep getting whatever it is they're after. Usually it's material wealth, sensational pleasures, and I suppose also some sadistic pleasure with a bunch of them. Oh, and of course, living in such a way that they are not to be held accountable for their misdeeds. That's also a nice little privilege that they enjoy, I think, many of them. Or maybe not. Maybe Hans is lying. Okay, understanding that then, I suppose. Are you really interested in fixing this fight? It's not gonna happen. These energies, these tenets are always going to be there, as long as there's the masculine and the feminine. And maybe it's worth bringing up is that we see a lot of one taking over the other. Like if you consider the left feminine, I think that is a fair way of looking at it. They take on the right element of structure, and they in a sort of weird chimera, they bring up the message of freedom a lot, because they are representative of the feminine, but they do enact a very, very rigid structure, right? like taking, like sucking out the structure of the masculine, and then on the other side, well, what is left of the masculine there, in my opinion, they become very open, which is a feminine trait. You know, just and just let themselves be walked all over, sort of. Yeah, and we're at the stage in this marriage basically where the battered husband has the crazed wife just walking all over him, or crazed ex-wife. I don't know. I mean, I can't help but laugh a little bit at this, because to me it is, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. And you don't have just these millions of people who just are swept along in it. Not even because they care anymore about why the system is around in the first place, which was to give the population and, you know, nations, or populations also, plural, and nations structure, a means to live by, and looking for that healthy balance between, you know, okay, so how much freedom, how much structure, how much industry, how much nourishment, you know, those sort of things. How much, and of course, you know, the heritage, the bloodlines. There is nothing there on the feminine that is supposed to be opposed to it. Not a healthy woman would not spit on her own grandmother. Okay. In abusive households it's a bit different, of course, but I'm talking about an entire people. Like even if your own family is an absolute mess, like you're gonna have those other members of your own race, your own blood lineage, who are gonna be pretty awesome and inspiring, and they were good people and they did the right things as much as they could. Flawed, sure, but wanting to do right. And I think that a healthy feminine has no issues with that. But it's the masculine that really like sets his hand down on the table and says, okay, this is gonna be always, this is where it comes from, where we come from. And those men and women of the past, they did their very best with what they had. They overcome the evil of their generation, so we do not have to live in the consequences of it, that sort of thing. But at the same time, the feminine, you know, is a bit indifferent to it in a certain sense. It's strange. I do not really know how that happened to be. And again, many good women, they care about their grandmothers, they care about their grandfathers. You know, big kiss to you. We love you very much, and we're happy that you're around. So, bearing all of this in mind, though, why do I bring all of this up? It's because I think if you have friends who really are into politics of you, which I do not think most of the people that are subscribed to me are, when you engage with politics, maybe it's worthwhile to look at this vision that I had in mind, and then consider, like, is it worth it? Is it worth the time I put into it? Or, you know, do we bring that back into the household? There are types, there's two kinds of types, I suppose, of people also, masculine or feminine, stays in the middle. They think that government is basically the creator, if that makes sense. Like, humanity really has a bit of an obsession with creators, doesn't it? White people are, you know, I do not really think that used to be such a big deal for our people in the past so much. Like, most creation stories, even in the old myths, they're, you know, are they really originally ours? I'm almost afraid to say it. Or that is to say, are they like even if they were originals on their own right, haven't the wrong people been mucking around with it? I think that's fairer to say. Then that makes more sense. Yeah, I think that is a fair thing to say. For whiteys, for Europeans, Hyperboreans, whatever you want to call yourself, Caucasians. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if you guys are hearing this noise. There's a lot of traffic all over the place today. It's a bit strange, you know. Usually it's so quiet here. And now I lost my train of thought. Of course I did. So talking about heritage, well, I suppose, coming to the point of, at which point do you say, you know what, this is all artificial, it doesn't work, it never worked throughout history, it always backfires on us, a few generations have some advantage of it, and then it completely goes to goes into haywire. And here is the thing, like those older generations who really cared and they carried the torch to the next generation, and they wanted their line to go into eternity, if you will. Well, how many of that is still left, in a sense, if you look at some of these hideous wars that we've had? And again, who was behind that? Was that natural? Like when you really think about that, millions just mowing each other down with like these iron, what do you call that? Or what should we call it? Just into the meat tenderizer or the meat grinder. That's the word, the meat grinder. It's just bomb, 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 and they're just taking out hundreds of guys. And hundreds, like young men, probably many don't even have children yet. And all these lineages are just wiped off the map. Isn't that also something that in the right wing is such a source of pain? Why are we going to... And then at the same time, the right wing, if you will, it's like they're right ready to get back in front of those meat grinders. What is that all about? Oh, it's a matter of honor. Well, can you not do something more, constructive for honor? I like to think what I'm doing is honorable. You don't see me dressing up in some sort of soldier's outfit. Although I do like camo clothing, though. That's just a personal taste of mine. But all that by the wayside. Like the real, having arms. Personally, if you're an armed man, you're a free man. That is how I look at that, and which is, by the way, also an ancestral saying. I think it came from the Saxons specifically. One of those guys, those tribes that they actually had a weapon that was associated with them specifically. Like how much... well, yeah, maybe I shouldn't go off into that rabbit hole. So in and of itself is nothing bad, but are we really going to make a repeat of it all? No, I think all you're going to end up with is the same sort of loonies and sadists and what have you laughing, psychopaths laughing about it, just 100 or so years later. Like, can we not? Can we not revisit that trauma? That would be nice. Can we instead heal the trauma? And I do also say, and maybe if someone would have asked me in the past, were you left wing or right wing? Like, I cannot say it enough. I do not care about that. But there might have been a point when I was foolish or just ignorant. Being ignorant isn't so much a bad thing, so long as you're a learning person. As long as you want to keep learning and you just don't know it yet. That's a different matter. I think you would have found me on the right wing, so to say. But truly, I have a lot of left wing tenants that I really like too. Actually, I like all of these tenants. Whether and that in and of itself is also maybe something that people should look at. Do these tenets not appeal to all of, like all of these right-wingers who talk about free speech, and then ironically on the left is like no, like they give all these these token talismanic terms to speech to dampen it, to quiet it, to root it out eventually, to basically silence people against their will. Yeah, like that's technically a feminine thing, the free speech aspect, because there isn't that much structure there. So are you then truly 100% right wing? Probably not. And guess what? That's okay. Then you have these types say, oh, but you know, you can have right-wingers who are all about nourishing, like ecologists, right-wing ecologists, and you know, right-wingers want freedom too. The freedom to do what, right? That's another video. The freedom to do what? Very important question to ask oneself. But at the end of the day, those are typically feminine things. Isn't that a bit of an eye-opener then? It's like, it's basically, because here's the thing, it doesn't mean that you're, that there isn't anything physically, you know, with your sexuality, anything off kilter with that or anything. No. Like heterosexual people have these tenets of the opposite sex in them too, if you will. And that is fine. That is healthy actually. Because it means that you got something from your father and your mother. Whether you were the daughter in the house or the son in the house, stays the same in that sense. It's also the bridge to connecting with the other sex, if you might have realized that by now. And if you want to have a girlfriend, guys, then, you know, it's like it might be worthwhile that you have empathic traits, that you can be open. And, well, you know, in that sense, there is more that comes with it. I have other videos on that too, right? For the guys and the girls, in fact. Talking about sexuality all of a sudden. But it is actually a big component in all of this stuff. Believe it or not. I mean, I guess I've laid that out well enough, didn't I? I hope. Oh, yeah, and there are these types who think that government is the creator of all. That's why you have a lot of atheists who kind of look at government like some sort of physical deity. It's actually a very cult-like mindset. You try telling that to an atheist, though, who is like hardcore. Not all of them, of course. Hashtag not all. But they are religious. And, you know, just like Christians who go to church or Muslims to a mosque, you'll have atheists who go to the government. It is a thing. Or you have, of course, those who go to both. You know, even better. You know, just keep listening to all of these imposing authorities that you're supposed to follow. It's like, yikes. But yeah, so many think that governments are the creator of all, the creators of culture, which is wrong, because no, blood is the creator of culture, you know? And nature as well. Nature has a big impact on that, on culture. Simple example maybe, white people who are in Spain and white people who are in Scandinavia, you know, the blood is going to create a similar morality in both cultures. So I'm like, man and woman are equal. That is a typical white thing in the past, until all of these foreign systems were enforced on our race in general. Whether that was a racial attack in and of itself, I cannot say. It definitely is today, though. But yeah, and then where does nature come in? Oh, well, you know, if you're Scandinavian, you're probably gonna have more fish for dinner. And if you're Spanish, you're gonna have more olives for dinner, that sort of thing. I don't know. Your house is gonna be more orange, yellow toned when you're in Spain, whereas in Scandinavia it's gonna be more like a wooden cabin. That's where nature comes into play, you know. But if you're with these Spanish and these Scandinavians in the opposite direction of each other, you might come with something that is very alike still, as I see it. And I think that is a fair way of putting it. And that is natural, that is healthy, that is, you know, keeping things going. So there is where culture is created, if you will. It's nothing to do with politics. And the migrations of people is... But actually all of it can come back down to that. It's just race, so blood lineage, plus environment. And again, you know, whether it's... well, example... I do not know any names particularly. Like the Apache and the Navajo are not exactly the same people, are they either? Like the Apache are more like planes, and Navajo, I have no idea actually. I know barely anything about that. Or with Asian peoples, maybe that's a fairer way of looking at it. You know, Japanese and the Chinese, you know, different subgroups of their Asian race. And again, the environment played its part in their development, and so forth and so on. I do not know as much about the other races because there's quite a lot of stuff to know about my own, and I like to focus on that too. I know a little bit about the other ones and their history, but maybe not as much as I should. So, might work on that in the future. We'll see if I find the time for it. This is a big one. But yeah, if you then have an increasing amount of people who look at the government as the creator of all, like, you know, even people who don't even know that milk comes from cows and that apples grow from trees, like, they think that government creates all of that. It's absolutely nuts. That's what happens when people are living in urban areas for too long, I guess. Too many generations just living in concrete, plastic and steel. It's seems to be very harmful, because these people become completely dependent on these systems, right? And look at the damage it does. Like, they even then get they become cultists, and before long, yeah, they're telling the rest of the population or the rest of the world how to live their lives. It always ends up this way, doesn't it? And then the bloodshed follows, then the tears and the trauma. Yeah. Have I laid out enough there? Well, you know, and then the opposite is that the opposite of people who think that the government is the creator are not the religious who say that God or whatever is the creator. No. Nature in and of itself is the creation. Man is part of that creation, and that is spiritual in and of itself. Spirituality can be very mundane. I like to talk about the deities, they're also important and all of that, but when it comes down to it, that should be personal. You know, if the desert god is important to you, that should actually be your personal damn business. If your ancestral deities are important to you, oh well, that is also your personal business. You have no business putting it on others. As I see it. I think that is fair, I think that is healthy, and the ones who want you to think like they are, these are sick people. Like yeah, there's little else to add to it, they're mentally ill. And that goes with, you know, again, any artificial system, whether it's political, religious, the whole thing. You again see that blueprint underneath it all, that always comes down to follow just then the people who are, you know, basically the priesthood. It always comes back down to that. And the priesthood may change every 4 years or whatever it's going to be, you know, a new face. But the priesthood itself isn't going anywhere, and that's what you're truly worshipping then at that point. Nah, Hans probably has it wrong, hasn't he? It's like, go back into the woods, right? And I will. But yeah, that's what I had to say there, I think. And I had thought it was going to be a short one, but apparently not really. Yeah, like what I said earlier, it's for people you think who might need to hear this, who might be helped by it. So they range themselves out, or at least give them that extra way of looking at it, I suppose. And it cannot be about man versus woman or masculine versus feminine. There's two parts of a greater whole. That's healthy. So what do you do then with systems that, you know, preach the opposite? I don't know. Maybe you do. I think you might. And with that said, I'm gonna go. It's I'm actually glad I managed to get this out. It's took me long enough. I've actually had, yeah, did I mention it earlier already in this video that it's been on my mind for years? Oh well, at any rate, you all give it a thought, I suppose. Be bold and be independent. Be independent of mind. That doesn't mean to be an individualist in and of itself. Again, it's about, you know, the whole individualism and collectivism stuff, like I mentioned before in another video. It's an artificial fight. Once again, you need both. No man is an island, but every man can, or woman, of course, capital M man, let's put it like that. Nobody is an island, but everyone is his own being, all the same. Alright, you all have a good one, and well, see you soon. Bye bye.